We're in for a real treat today. We're here with Dr. Bernard Roth, who also goes by Bernie. So a little bit about Dr. Roth. He's the Rodney H. Adams Professor of Engineering and the Academic Director of the Hasso-Plattner Institute of Design, also known as the D.school, at Stanford University. He graduated from the City College of New York with a degree in mechanical engineering. He's a native New Yorker, and he earned a master's degree and a PhD in mechanical engineering from Columbia University. In 2012, the Columbia University Engineering School Alumni Association awarded him the prestigious Eggleston Medal for Distinguished Engineering Achievement, and he lives in Stanford, California. We have a pretty interactive presentation today. He's got a mic for Q&A, so it'll be a good hour. Without further ado, Dr. Roth.
Thanks. Thank you for coming out here. I have Google stocks, so I won't waste your time, you understand? This book that I wrote is an expression of stuff that's been in my life for a very, very long time. When I first came out to the Valley in 1962, it was a very different place. Not only was there no Google, there were no startups, essentially. Big Hewlett-Packard was the big place in town. And a lot of people would always, my students, someday they're going to start a company and all that. And there wasn't venture money and all that. And most of them never did. And it reminded me of this story in The Iceman Cometh, where these guys are sitting in the bar all day, and they never leave the bar, and they just talk about going out and crossing the street. So I felt really that there was something missing in people's education. So I started a class which eventually is called the Designer in Society. The name doesn't mean anything, it's just a name. And the idea was everyone got to do a term project which they chose, which was either get rid of a problem in your life or do something you've always wanted to do and you've never done before. And it could be things like jumping out of airplanes or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything academic or engineering or stuff like that. And to fill the 10 weeks between that, I had to do a lot of stuff. And so I developed a lot of exercise and readings and things like that. And it's been going on since 1970, so it's a long time. And eventually, various circumstances in my life led to, well, I'm stuck here on my sabbatical. I might as well do something useful. So I decided I'd write a book. Now, the last time I had that feeling was when I was a young assistant professor on my first sabbatical in Holland. And I started to write a book, and it turned out to be 525 pages of all equations. It took me 9 years. And one reviewer said it's the best book of the century. Another says it's the best kinematics book ever written. And it sold 2,000 copies. This book took like less than a year to write. It's been processed for 3 years. It's been out 2 days. Amazon has run out of copies. It went to the #1 list in business and advice kind of things. It's in the top 100. The staff has chosen to read it. So this is like amazing. No equations. And, and so it's like bracketing my life, you know, from serious scientist to fuzzy guy, okay. But the fuzzy guy stuff is useful, and I find it's amazing. The story, they make me cry, a lot of these stories, because it's changed a lot of people's lives. And the funny thing is, I thought it was me and my magic in the classroom, my insightfulness and all that. But people have been having galleys for a couple of months around, and I keep getting the same stories. You know, Bernie, I picked up your book, and I did this, and I did that, and all that. And including the woman who's the closest, she used to work for the Washington Post, and now she works at the D.school, and she does our blog page and all that stuff. And she was close to me from the beginning with the book. And when she got to read the final copy, she said, you know, I'm going to stop trying to do something. I'm going to write my own book. And she's getting up at 3 in the morning every morning writing a book. So this can, I want to warn you, this can ruin your life. Right? Okay. And the other insight I had coming in here, if these 2 guys called Larry and Serge had taken my course, this company would be 3 times bigger than it already is. So, but somehow they escaped without seeing me there. Anyhow, so I want to talk to you basically about life and problem solving and things like that. And if you read one of the reviews that on Amazon, you can have readers' reviews. So my buddy Bob Sutton, who wrote a book, Don't Hire Assholes, or something like that, he put up, well, Bernie thinks about the world different than everyone else. He says, but it seems to be very successful, so maybe you ought to try some of his ideas. So I'm going to give you some ideas, which up until Tuesday were just Bernie's bullshit. But now it's written. So this is real, this is real, folks. I've been getting away with it for all these years, but now I could give you a book where it's real, and it's good. And I started this stuff, there's a company called IDEO, you may or may not know them, which are my students and stuff like that. And for years I would do my stuff, and people say, well, how's that? And I say, well, that's what they do at IDEO, so it's got to be okay. So I had someone to point to. Now I don't have to hide behind IDEO, I can just point to my book. Okay, so what do we want to talk about? Well, what I want to talk about first is solving problems. So the issue is you're all smart. Like Larry Page said, you all deserve to be here, right? So you got past that hurdle, or whoever reads that stuff. And I deal at Stanford with a lot of smart people, and I have a lot of smart friends, and I'm pretty smart myself. So how come we all mess up and we can't solve problems? We all have, in our lives, we have problems. In our work, we have problems. How come we can't just do what we want to do and it flows? Well, it's illogical. I mean, why, even if we grasp for something new, if you're really smart, you should be able to solve it. So what is it that happens? So I've noticed we do a lot of, I have a life. I've lived a long time, and I've had a lot of problems. I notice my family has a lot of problems. My friends have problems. We do a lot of work at the D.school, a lot of problems around the world. Before that, in the design group at Emmy, we do a lot of projects for companies. And how come people get stuck? And I said, this is very scientific. In my view, 99.999% of the time, it's because you're working on the wrong problem. It's as simple as that. And what you've done is you've taken an answer and you've assumed that's the question. I'll explain that more later. And it's not a good answer to what you want to work on. So even if you solved it, it really wouldn't be good. It'd be kind of a crummy kludge. So, but once you find the right problem to work on, it's generally easy sailing, and sometimes it's like right in front of you and that. So I'll give you a simple example in my own life, and there's 2 points to this. The first point is whatever I tell you right now is not like an inoculation for life. You have to keep looking at this stuff, and it's a little hard. That's the tricky part about it. Just knowing about it is not enough. You have to kind of check yourself all the time. So go back about some years, and I'm doing my guru number at KTH, which is the MIT of Sweden in Stockholm. And things are going great. But at night, I'm losing sleep all night long because I'm near the retirement age. In those days, there was a thing called retirement age. And I'm deciding, should I retire or shouldn't I retire? And I'm really losing sleep over that. In the middle of one of my lectures, I go, hey, maybe I should apply some of this stuff to myself. So at that night, I go home, and the trick is, the stuckness is to ask yourself what it would do for you if you solved your problem. So I said to myself, well, what's my problem? My problem is deciding whether I should retire or not. And I said, well, what would it do for me if I solved the problem? I could stop worrying about whether to retire or not, right? It's as simple as that. So the problem is not the decision. The problem is to stop worrying. So how do you stop worrying about whether to retire or not? Well, it's a no-brainer. You just stop worrying about it. So I stopped. And it's many, many years, and I never worried about it again. So it's a kind of crummy example, but that's the essence of it, that you have the wrong problem. And often it's a little subtle change in the thing. And you think you're dealing with something which is life and death, and it's not the right thing. Okay? So that's the model. So can we write on this board or something? Good. Oh, and it has markers. Fantastic. Okay. So let's take an example so this becomes really concrete, and then we'll apply it to your life. So what I do with Stanford students is this one, but well, we'll do it with you guys too. I don't know. So let's say you're having trouble deciding getting married. So let's say your problem is how to get married. And you've tried everything. You know, most people, it's not an issue. They get married or don't get married, but they don't worry about it. But let's say in your case, you're really concerned about this. You've done you've joined many computer dating services. In the old days, you would go to every bar on the Camino and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And your friends are fixing you up, and nothing works. And your parents are on your case, and your older brother is waiting for you to get out of the way so he can get married to his true love, but he can't get married because you haven't got married. Whatever it is, that whole drama. So let's say it just doesn't work for you. So my method is, you're stuck. And my method says probably you're stuck because this is the wrong question. And the way you find what the right question is, you say, what would it do for me if I solved it? What would I do for me if I got married? So somebody give me an answer. What would it do for you if you got married? Someone.
Parents will stop bugging you?
Say again?
Your parents will stop bugging you?
Okay, great. All right, great. So how to get parents to stop bugging you. Okay. So that's the problem. So now the question is, how do you get your parents to stop bugging you? Well, and even if you got married, they might not stop bugging you because then they don't want grandchildren, blah, 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 blah. So if they're going to bug you, they're going to keep bugging you. So it wouldn't even solve that problem often. And that's the problem with this thing. If it's hard, it's often because it won't even solve the problem, okay? Okay, because you'll marry the wrong person, they'll bug you about that. And well, you know, there's a lot of ways they can bug you. But the question is now, once you got this is a bigger solution space, because there are lots of ways to get your parents to stop bugging you, including this, let's say, or maybe not this. Either way, it doesn't matter. So how could you get your parents to stop bugging you? You could move to the other end of the earth, right? You could send them on a trip around the world. You could tell them how much you love them. You could get your brother or sister to call them every day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or you get your mother, if they're divorced, you can get them each romantic relationship so that they don't worry about you so much. There's a million ways to do that, okay? So that's the idea, basically. And if that didn't work, why would you want your parents to stop bugging you? Let's play with me some more.
Why?
What would it do for you if your parents stopped bugging you?
I wouldn't be as stressed.
Say again?
I wouldn't be as stressed.
Okay, so now, all right, so that's great. So how to be less stressed? Okay, so now that's really interesting because, again, there'll be lots of ways, and they may have nothing to do with your parents. They could bug you, it wouldn't matter. If I was enlightened, you know, if I was an enlightened being, it doesn't matter what you say. There's no way you could bug me. It has nothing to do with that, okay? And certainly, getting married might not make you less stressed at all. It might make you more stressed. So if your real problem is how to get less stressed, none of this will help you, okay? So that's what the idea gets at. The idea is to find a problem which is the real problem. So this is hypothetical and may or may not ring a bell with you. The test for all this stuff is whether it works in your own life. So I want you to take a moment now and think of a real problem in your life. Now, I don't want like peace in the world forever, stuff like that. I want something that's part of your life. It could be a work problem, it could be a social problem, but something really that I would say you lose sleep over. And just think of that and just make a simple sentence. If you have something to write on, it's good to do that. If you don't, you can do it in your head. I know you're brilliant enough to hang on to it. But I want you to start at this level here with something that bugs you in your life that doesn't kind of work and you'd like to be rid of it. Okay? Now this stuff really works. I guarantee you it works. Money back guarantee, okay? If you do it, it works. If you don't do it, it doesn't work by definition, right? So please give it a shot, no matter how reluctant you may think or how happy you may think. Think of something in your life that doesn't work and just think of it as a simple sentence like how to or some simple problem issue, okay? Okay, so let's play my game, and my game would be, what would it do for you if that were gone from your life, if you solved that issue? What would it do for you? Again, make it a simple sentence and make it into a problem. So that's the thing you really want to be going after, not the thing you started with. So you're converting it, you're reframing the problem into something that if you solve this problem, it would take care of for you, and you're going to deal with that directly. Yes?
Isn't that way of thinking a little selfish, though?
One more time?
Isn't that way of thinking a little selfish? If your
Selfish?
Yes. If
Yes.
your problem includes not only yourself, but people surrounding you,
Yes.
answering what would it do for you,
Yes.
and answering, for example, how
Sure.
you can be less stressed about it,
Yes.
doesn't mean that it makes a difference in the people
Sure.
that you want to.
Okay, I understand what you're saying hypothetically. Do you have a specific problem? And
Yes.
Give-
I'm Greek.
tell- what Greek? I know about Greeks, yes.
Yes.
Some of my best friends are Greek.
Yes.
Yes.
So my problem right now would be, for example, how to make sure that my family and friends back home are good.
Good, okay.
And
Okay, good. All right,
Please
don't
make the-
stop.
Yes.
Okay. So my friend Panos just had his daughter marry a Greek guy, which makes him very nervous. And he said in Greece, what happened a week ago, he was the only bank in Greece operating. So anyway, so I understand what you're talking about, but the point simply is, you're holding what I'm saying in incorrect. I don't mind you if you're really losing sleep about your parents and all that. That's fine. What would it do for you? What are you losing sleep over? It's like, how could your parents frame it? What's the problem?
yeah, how can I make sure that the situation is solved? Like, is there anything I can do as a person to help the situation?
Yeah, I understand. But okay, so your question is, what can I do to help the situation in Greece? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Okay, now the game is, what would it do for you if you could help the situation in Greece?
Well, I guess everything goes back to stress, right? Like,
No,
if
but
you,
okay. The thing to understand is, if you could help the situation in Greece, you would do it. You're frustrated. You are. You know, the story I love is this one. It's a guy is walking along, a drunk is walking along, and he hits a lamppost. He walks along and he hits a lamppost. He walks along and he hits a lamppost, and finally he says, "I give up. They got me surrounded." Okay, but if you're not drunk, you see the lamppost and you walk around it, and that's the problem. You're hitting a lamppost because the situation in Greece is terrible, and your relatives are in distress, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Okay, so now what are you going to do?
is there nothing we can do about it?
I don't know. So what are you going to do about it?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, good. How long have you been thinking about it?
Months.
Months. So the indication is you can't do much about it right now. So the question, I'm not in any way trivializing it. I'm not in any way trivializing your feelings. And you could do that, but I'm saying for you, what is it doing for you to think about that Greek thing?
I guess if I made the situation a little bit different, even for one person that I know, even for one person that I
Yes.
don't know,
Yes.
that would make me happier with my life.
Good. So that's great. So why don't you do one thing, make someone happy? Who's stopping you?
I'm doing for one person, but then I'm thinking, how can I make people around me more considerate of the situation? To, you know, if everybody around me like donated a small amount.
Okay. So who's stopping you from getting people to do that?
I'm trying. Facebook is helping.
Okay. Well, I mean, am I stopping you from doing that?
No, but I'm asking, like, if I was wondering, like, okay, this situation in Greece makes me stressed, how am I going to deal with my stress instead of dealing with the situation?
Yeah. So that's, you know, it's interesting. You think you're helping the situation by being stressed. You actually might help it by not being stressed. You know. Well, I had a woman once in my workshop with a similar idea. Her problem was she wanted to get her daughter into a good college, and she was very stressed. And her realization was that the issue was really her stress, not the daughter going to college. Because once her daughter went into a good college, she'd find something else to be stressed about. And her stress didn't help the daughter get into a good college or not. So she's dealing with the wrong problem. I'm not saying it's an issue that doesn't exist. I'm not saying getting married is not an issue that exists. I'm just saying it's the wrong problem for you at the moment, and you're not handling it well because you're a smart person. You have Facebook, you have all these things, and somehow it's not working for you, what you're doing, or it is. If it is, great. I'm not against it. I'm happy for you. I'm saying you having something, hypothetically, that you're losing sleep over, and you've been working on it, it doesn't work. And how come such a smart person like you can't solve it? Well, it's the wrong problem for you to work on. It's a simple, that's not hard problem. There's a lot of people in the world trying to solve that problem. So you've put yourself in a situation which is the wrong thing to be working on. And you could make yourself dead over the issue and it's still not going to change it. You understand? So you have to be honest with yourself. And this is a little hard to say, but you're lying to yourself in some way. And you're lying to yourself because you have a certain self-image of the daughter or the family member who's concerned with these things. But if you look at what you're really doing and what's going on, it's a thing for yourself. Now, it sounds selfish, but it's not selfish. Okay? You have to, we'll get to it. So let's just hang out for a few minutes because we'll get to it in a minute. And we'll get to what I call reasons of bullshit, and we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Anyone else have any problems understanding this idea? Now, believe me, it really works. I do this every year in a class. I have this colleague who every year he says, "This is amazing, Bernie. It works. Every year I come in and do it." So why does he say every year this is amazing and he needs me to come into the room to do it? Because he just knows it intellectually and he hasn't put it into his life. And as I told you in my first anecdote of myself, who does this stuff all the time, still got caught not doing it. So the thing about it, it's not only good to know it intellectually, you have to apply it, and you have to realize that every time. If you're stuck, it's a tool. Believe me, it works. I guarantee you it works. I've done it with thousands of people around the world. It's a simple idea. If you're stuck, what would it do for you if you solve the problem? That reframes the problem for you. If you're stuck again, go one more level. Never go more than 2 levels above, because there you get to the ultimate question mark of life and the guys in India who are blind from looking at the sun and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to be working at Google to go more than 2 levels. And the trouble is you lie to yourself. And it's sort of in the realm of what she's doing, because she has a certain self-image of herself as this good person, and a good person, of course, wants to do something in Greece and all that. And she's not doing it, so she's frustrated. But the thing is, she wants to make herself feel better, clearly. And that sounds selfish, but it's not selfish. And she could do better for the people there if she were more forthright with the thing. All right, so that's one of the hurdles with solving problems. Once you get the right problem, it works out fine in general. Sometimes you would sabotage yourself, and you sabotage yourself with reasons. And the problem is you don't say, "I have an excuse." You don't say, "I have an excuse, Bernie." You say, "The reason is this." And the thing to understand is, in terms of personal behavior, all reasons are bullshit. You have no idea why you're doing stuff. You just do it, and then you make up a reason for it. And that's called being a reasonable person. If you don't have a reason, you're not a reasonable person, right? If you say, "Why did you come here to talk at Google?" If I say, "I don't know," this guy's crazy, you know. But if I say, "I came because I was invited," or "I came because I want to spread my wisdom," it's all reasonable, right? Or if I take this guy, he's looking at his thing, I punch him in the nose. He says, "Why did you do that?" I say, "I don't know. I'm not reasonable." I say, you punch him in the nose. You say, "You look like the guy who raped my neighbor." Then it's a good reason, right? So I mean, it's on that absurd level that we do our reasons. And there have been a lot of studies that show that people's brains are such, the part of the brain that determines what you do usually fires before the part that figures out the reason for doing it. So usually you do stuff and then you say why. And my favorite example is right now. My mouth is a little dry, okay? Now, if you say to me, "Why is your mouth dry, Bernie?" I'd say, "Well, I'm speaking a lot." That's logical, right? But I don't tell you that I was out last night drinking. I don't tell you I'm always dehydrated. I don't tell you a lot of things which don't make me look as good as I'm speaking now. So in anything you do, there's a million reasons for it. And it's a matter of the one that you pick out. To say something is a reason for your behavior is a lie. And you need it to be reasonable. So what I do is, if you ask me a reason, I'll tell you something. I'm not going to be a jerk about it. But if I know when I say it that reason is bullshit, then I'm going to say I'm not going to do that again. And then I'll do it again. But eventually I'll stop doing it. So you have to realize that, in fact, that anything you call a reason is not the reason for anything. So I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to do a little experiment. I want you to turn to a person next to you, and I want you to do a little exercise which goes like this. So you're going to work with me. You're lucky. All right. And the way it goes like this, I've done this workshop 1,000,000 times with the people I work with at Stanford, my whole group in the design group before the D.school. So in our meeting, if some guy gets up, we have one professor who's always crabbing about stuff. So he gets up and he says, well, the reason I can't do this is the dean said, and everyone goes, that's a good reason, with the emphasis on the O's, okay, which means it's bullshit. Okay, so in my parlance, a good reason means it's not a reason at all. So if she's my partner here, I say the reason my mouth is dry is because I'm talking too much. She says, that's a good reason. Good.
That's a good
Okay,
reason.
then I say, the reason I came here is because I was invited.
That's a good
Okay, so everything I said is true, okay? It's true, but it's not the reason. Okay, it's not, because I could have been invited and not come. And I could have come uninvited also. You know, there's a lot of different things. So it's kind of funny, you know what I mean? And why did I come? Did I come because I want you to think I'm a great man? Did I come because I want to sell books? There's 1,000,000 reasons in there, you know? And I'm going to pick the one that's going to make me look the coolest. That's my self-image. Okay, I want you to experience that for yourself. So what I'm going to ask you to do is turn to your partner, and I'm going to first tell her a whole bunch of reasons. She's going to tell me each one is a good reason, and then at some point I'll say switch roles, and then she'll tell me her reasons, and I'll say that's a good reason for each of them. Okay, you get the idea? Okay, and if you do that, you're going to get a reward from me. All right? Okay, so please turn to a partner. And if you don't have a partner, raise your hand. What's that? For anything, anything. Well, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. He asked me a very important question. A reason for what? A reason for anything, but take real things in your life, okay? Like whatever happens in your life, the reason I'm here, or the reason I'm going home tonight, or the reason I went to the movies yesterday, or just real stuff in your life, and just put a reason for your behavior. So the reason is for your behavior. Real things in your life, behavior, okay?
And can you say it's a good reason or it's a bad reason?
No, all reasons are good reasons. They're all bad. What you don't understand, she asked, can you say any reason? There is no good reason. This is a joke. All reasons are bad. They're bad in the sense that they're not uniquely the reason for anything. They're a reason. And the fact that you're singling that out is the problem. Okay? Okay? All right. Okay, thank you. You get the idea. So one of the ones she just triggered something in me which I love very much. I was at a PhD exam up at Stanford in the ed school, and we were about to start, but there was a professor who was coming late, happened to be a person from Berkeley, and they said, oh, she's coming from Berkeley. Like, that's okay to be late. And she just triggered that. She said, the reason I was late is I came from the other building. That's the bullshit I'm trying to get you to understand. We do that to ourselves all the time. It's just an excuse. She didn't leave in time. She didn't leave in time, among other reasons. And that's what we do. So it's so obvious when you see it. And the problem is that I've just ruined your life. Because you're always using bullshit reasons, and all the people in your life are using bullshit reasons. So the first thing I got to do in order to make at least that you won't get killed and lose your relationship, do not try this at home. Please do not try this. It's okay to say, hey, we had this crazy professor today at work, and he said reasons of bullshit. That's okay. But what you can say is your reasons of bullshit. I have never said that to my wife. I've never said that to my friends. I've never said that to my family. I never say it to the guys I bike with who are full of bullshit reasons for everything. Do not do that. Give them a copy of my book. That's the way out of that. That will do it, really. Do not, just fix yourself. But it's so simple when you see that. When you see how we use reasons all the time, they're just excuses. And once you get past that, you'll change your behavior if you want to. Now, it doesn't happen necessarily the next time, but it will change. And I've lived through that many times. So the idea is it's a really good framework to have in the back of your mind that all reasons are bullshit. And we need them social. We have to be reasonable. But we don't need to keep repeating the same thing if we realize what I just did is bullshit and I don't want to do it again. I don't want to come late again. And then you will come late again. But eventually you'll learn to leave 10 minutes earlier, if you want to. And if you don't, you'll have a good life without it. But that's the point. Yes. Well, let me get, I've been remiss in getting the people the mic. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So this is just
That's a good reason. Yeah,
Quick
go ahead.
question. So
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay.
But I wonder whether you think that that for everything we do, there's lots of reasons.
Yes.
And there isn't one predominant one, and
Yes,
we just
sure.
arbitrarily
Sure,
choose
that's-
something,
yeah.
or there's some like deep reason that we're not aware of that's somehow subconscious and it's driving our behavior.
Yeah. Well, my belief is that there are many reasons, and there's a veil. You know, so the ultimate reason is some great ancestor had sex. If they didn't, you wouldn't be here. So that's the reason for everything, but that seems absurd. But it goes that way, you know, there's a whole hierarchy of reasons. So some seem more relevant because they're more recent and all of that. However, what you choose to do is not necessarily related to what seems like the obvious reason right now. So our friend from Greeks left, but there may be deep, I don't know her well, and stuff like that. And I understand what she's talking about, of course, it's not unreasonable. But that reason for that behavior may go back to her childhood, may go back to what her mother did or how her parents raised her. Or it's not as simple as you think it is. We're all very complex beings. We're formed by heredity and environment. And the things we do, we just do. And then we make things that make our self-image seem okay. But that's not if we remove the things, you'd still have that behavior often. Or not, I don't know. But it's not, and who cares? I mean, I don't care. It's not my research. I don't care about that. What I care about is functioning and making myself a better functioning person and having a better life for myself and the people around you. And I'm telling you, if you get rid of reasons, it will work much better. A simple example of my life, I get from China and India and all over the world, maybe 3 or 4 emails a week. Professor, I'd like to come and do a PhD with you. Okay? And I used to give all, you know, I'm sorry, I don't have enough money, my group, I'm going on sabbatical. And it's all bullshit, because if I wanted to take anybody, there's nothing that would stop me from taking someone. So the bottom line is I just don't want to take that person. And I just say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I get at most back a thank you for answering my email, Professor. When I used to give reasons, well, I got a rich uncle, you know, I say I don't have enough research. I have a rich uncle, he'll do this, and it goes on and on and on, and it's totally dysfunctional. I'm not going to take the person anyway. So just trying to make them feel nice with the reasons actually makes it worse. And often we give reasons to make it feel nicer for someone else. We're really trying to make it easier for ourselves. If you just say what you do without the excuses and the reasons, it's fine. I came late. Sorry. Without why you came. I don't care why. You came late. That's all. It's as simple as that. You know, I don't need the bullshit reasons. Okay? So really, it's a very simple thing. I have a chapter entitled Reasons of Bullshit. Believe me, try it out. Believe me, just try not to give reasons. But again, don't tell anyone else their reasons of bullshit. And if people are great teachers. You should learn from everyone in your environment. If you see what they do, just don't do the same thing yourself. Okay, so that's kind of the next point I want to make. We're getting close to time. So if anyone, I'm going to do one more shtick. Unless you have questions, we could do that first. So anyone have some questions, or I'll rant on a little bit more. Okay, so the last thing that's really important, so what we first talked about is essentially reframing, to make sure you're working on a problem that's the right problem. The next thing is not to let yourself off with excuses, to actually have the right thing, that just take responsibility for your behavior. And if it's not what you want, change it. It's as simple as that. And the next thing is people confuse two states, which are very different states, as the same thing. And that is this whole idea of trying and doing. Okay? And, you know, there's this big line that people always get from Star Wars, which I hate. There's no try, just do. I hate to conflict. I hate to contradict, but there is try. And there is do, okay? And I understand the context they use it. But they're two different states. And the problem is we confuse the idea between trying and doing. And if you try and do something, it might happen, it might not happen. You know, it's just that way. And if there's some obstacles, you're just going to not do it. If you're doing something, then it doesn't matter if there are obstacles or not, you're going to do it. Whatever it takes, you're going to do it. It's as simple as that. My great story on that happened a few months ago. My wife and I were driving in San Francisco, and there's a theater called the Roxy Theater. You probably all live in San Francisco, right? So you all know the Roxy in the Mission District. And they had a huge line that's bigger than ever. And I noticed on the marquee it was a movie about a band, and the band was going to be there. I said, that's going to be great. Let's go. And my wife said, no, I'm tired. Let's go home. I said, come on. She said, okay, we'll go. I said, get out of the car, buy the tickets. I'll go find a parking space. So 10 minutes later, I come back, and she's standing in front of the box office, not online. And I said, well, why aren't you online? And she said, they're sold out. I said, well, so what? Why didn't you get some tickets? She said, they're sold out. I said, come on. So I go, and of course, 5 minutes later, I have 2 tickets, and we go in. And she was right. It was a crummy show. We shouldn't have gone. But the point simply is she was trying. She really didn't want to go, but she was trying. And being sold out is the best excuse or reason in the world. They're sold out. What can I do? Now, give me a break. You know, just because they're sold out, if you really want to go to something, you can go. It's just a matter of price or whatever it takes or luck. But there's certainly someone in this long line in San Francisco who's going to have an extra ticket or sell me their ticket if I give them enough money, right? It's not a problem to get into a theater, the Roxy Theater, which is crummy and smelly and all that stuff, if you want. But it's a great example. She was trying. She really was. She was willing to go. But she was giving it a try. But the minute she got an obstacle, it was, whew, okay, we're done with that. I was going to go no matter what, no matter what it took. It turned out it was pretty easy. But I would have gone to a much higher level of doing if I wanted to, because I was determined to do it. Well, that's an example of what happens in our lives all the time. If we get obstacles and we hit it, we're like the drunk. They got us surrounded. I can't do anything. And if you're not drunk, it's just simple walking around it and you do it. And I cannot tell you, there's so many people taking my workshops. There were some guys from digital TV took a exec ed workshop I was running. And there's a thing I do, an exercise where you try and take a cup away from me. And if you try, you don't succeed and stuff like that. So they went back to digital TV and they had a project they wanted to do. And the manager said, no, we have no room and you guys can't do it and all that. And they said, we huddled and we said, let's take the cup away from Bernie. And what they did is they set up an office right in the hallway and they started working, and eventually they got space and moved ahead with the project. But it's an example, like, a lot of people say no all the time. I don't know how it is at Google. Here they probably say yes 10 times or something like that. But whatever it is, you did hit hurdles. And it's a question of trying or doing. And they're both okay. I don't have any... that's what I don't like about there's no try, just do. I think if you went in the doing state, that's true. But if you're in the trying state, it's okay. And you can try and do stuff, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, you don't have to live your life at this great intensity that some people do. Okay? So to summarize, I think it's important if you get stuck, it's important to realize that if you're working on the right problem, and you can reframe it as a very easy way, and I gave you a very easy way to reframe the problem, then if you're going to execute, you got to make sure you don't let yourself off with bullshit reasons called excuses. And just remembering all reasons are bullshit is true. And you don't need a reason, you just do what you do. And then the other thing is to make sure that which state you're in. If you're trying to do it, that's fine. And if you're doing it, it's fine. But they're not the same state. And you can switch from one to the other. If I have to kill you in order to do it, I might decide I don't want to do it. I should ought to decide I don't want to do it. It's fine to switch. It's just not fine to think you're in one when you're in the other one. And the one that we mainly confuse is we think we're doing when we were actually in the trying state. Okay? So that's kind of getting toward the end of my time, but we do have some times with questions and rewards for people with questions. So in my class, I actually ask people, I force people to question. So as a shareholder in Google, I demand that you ask me a question.
You think you're doing, but you're just trying. How do you
know the difference? Yeah, well, I mean, usually the results will tell you. So if you think you're doing, and suddenly you realize nothing's happening, as an example, that woman, if she's been helping the people in Greece for 6 months and nothing's happening, she's trying. So she has to stop Facebooking or whatever, take her money and go there or whatever it is. I don't know, But I'm just saying it's not working. So that's the easiest thing you do. It's just like my wife, we were not getting into the theater when the moment came. So she was trying. And doing is you'll do it, you'll accomplish it. So if it's just not working, you'll know. Actually, the interesting thing is to try takes force. To do is power. And it's much better to be powerful in life than forceful in life. And it actually takes less force to do often than it does to try. It's an interesting, because it goes. It's like, there's no question about it. When someone tries to take this thing away from me, we struggle, we fight. But if they do it, it's like an Aikido exercise. I don't have a chance. I'm just overwhelmed by their intention to do it. So it takes like an intention to do something, and you have to give it some attention. And if you do that, you're doing it. It's as clear as that. But as you stay home, I wish there was some way I could. That's trying, Someone, yes, okay, let's see, we'll get to you next, okay. But wait, I'm going to give a reward. 1 minute, I forgot my rewards. 1 minute. So people who ask questions, and you sort of did before, so you got a reward.
Thank you.
And you get a reward. And this, you can put it on your computer, spread stuff and bullshit. Here we go. There you go. You get this, and then you ask. Go ahead. And you'll get one anyway, because you already earned one. Go ahead.
So I think these three concepts are pretty deep. But the one where you talked about asking yourself the bullshit questions, right? Do you do it only for the most important ones or the ones you're bugged to, or you just make it a habit and paralyze yourself?
I'm not understanding what you're asking.
So if I'm going to ask myself the questions of why am I doing it for
Yes.
every small thing which I do.
No. You're not asking why you're doing it. You're asking yourself. You're stuck. You're not going to. Let me say 90%. If you're in Google here, your life. You've done a lot of good things in your life. Your life. You don't know. You didn't worry about getting dressed this morning. You got here. You didn't worry about getting a room. You got here. We do a million things we never even think about. But there are very few things that people like you and me lose sleep over. That's what I'm talking about. Not everything. Leave the rest of it. If it works, leave it alone. Don't mess with it.
That's right.
Do not mess with anything that works in your life. Please, okay? I don't want to say everyone, leave it alone. You're doing fine. You're doing fine in most of your life. But we all have these little things. And when I'm saying those little things are the ones, if you do that and say, what will it do for me? You'll get an insight. It'll open up the solution space, and often it'll solve itself, like my question about when I should retire or not. It takes care of itself. You were in this from before, but if you have another question, you can.
Well, I had a question that this is sort of about this,
Yes.
which was the implication of this, of recognizing that everything is a bullshit reason.
Yes.
So I wasn't sure whether you were trying to say that if somebody gives you no,
Yes.
and some reasons, you should realize that those are bullshit reasons, or whether when you're trying to get somewhere that your reasons are bullshit reasons, and that
Yes.
rephrasing the question will help you, or both.
Okay. What I'm saying is that the way you're built, the way all of us are built, is we don't actually know. This whole idea of there being a reason for a specific behavior is faulty. There is not a reason for a specific behavior, since he and I could have the same behavior and have different reasons for exactly doing the same thing. And in fact, there's a million reasons we've done it. We have a different history, and we can't figure that all out. It's complicated. It goes way back to your childhood, and maybe when you were in your cells, and maybe back to some cells that came out of the Big Bang. Who knows why? I don't know why. But it's so complicated for your behavior. It's not a simple thing of cause and effect. And when you make the simple cause and effect model, it's great, it's functional, it makes you a reasonable person. And it's fine, keep it all the time, don't mess with it. However, there are times when it gets in your way, and you're letting yourself off the hook. You're just, like she got here because she's in a distant building. I don't care, it's not that life and death, but it's a good example of this thing. She's not here because she came late. She's late, that's all. She doesn't know why she's late. It could be whatever it is. I don't know. It could be her parents were always late. She grew up in a culture where lateness didn't count. I don't know. I don't know what it is. And it doesn't matter. It's just take responsibility. All I'm saying is take responsibility for your behavior and don't let yourself off the hook with reasons because they're just excuses. And if you label them as excuses, you wouldn't do it. And you're making it, you're soft coating it by sugar coating it by saying it's a reason. It's not. And you don't know the reason. That's what I'm saying.
I was just wondering if, you thought maybe about the role of the poor and kind of thinking, trying versus doing. Is there any kind of differences in, say, maybe a socioeconomically disadvantaged person couldn't, buy movie tickets to a sold-out show?
Sure.
Is it just limited doing opportunities, or how do you kind of view that?
Well, everyone has different strategies. So if I'm a rich guy, I could buy. If I'm a poor guy, I could steal. I don't know. It's whatever I do. I could beg, or I could, to give you a heart-rendering story, my brother is in the theater and he's sick and could I please have your I don't know. Whatever it takes, that's the whole point. There's no right answer to it. It's just, hey, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. And often you feel really proud of yourself. I feel really proud that I got those 2 tickets. And I'm telling the whole world about it. My wife hates when I tell this story. But it's so clearly that thing. And there's no one answer. And money may not work in some cases, although it often does work pretty well. But it doesn't matter what the answer is. If you have a technical problem to solve, money may not work with that thing. But some different way of approaching it will. And whatever it is. But I once had this experience. I couldn't solve a math problem, very tough problem. And I was going to give a talk on it. And I had given the inflated title where I could solve the general case. And I was, in my mind, getting ready for the talk the next day. And I said, the reason I can't solve the general case is, and as I started to give the reason, it was clear I could solve the general case. But I had never let go of the reason. I realized it was a bullshit reason. So it even works in technical stuff. You don't know the reasons for stuff. You know what happens. That's all you know. And you don't need to know the reasons. The reasons are nonsense. They're not taking responsibility for where you were and what the situation is. Just use it a little bit, you'll see. It doesn't matter if you believe me and it makes sense or it doesn't. Just test it out. The next time you're about to give a reason, if you don't have to, just stop. Just say what's going on or what you're going to do. Okay? Anyone else? Yes. All right. Stickers are going. So here's this and here's.
I was just thinking that potentially reasons also show for great companies.
Yes.
Like companies without bullshit reasons get things done. And do you think that's true, or have you seen any examples of that?
Of what?
Like good companies that have given up reasons.
The whole company? I don't know. It's too general a question for me to. I don't know. I don't. But I'd say you get it actually with when people get caught with their fingers in the cookie jars. So when good companies do something bad, they'll generally admit it. And when bad companies do something bad, they generally give you all sorts of reasons for it. I don't know if that's true, but that's sort of my idea. Why don't you tell? And in fact, you get that all the time, even in politics. Like Clinton and Nixon got into more trouble by saying they didn't do it than if they'd said they did it. I did it. Something happened in the Oval Office. I did it. That's not, or Nixon, yes, we had the burglars. Just by not doing it, and they give you all these reasons and stuff like that, it just becomes messy. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe people are getting away with it all the time. We just don't know about it. Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
It seems like you could end up being in the doing state, but end up working on something that is genuinely impossible. Is that? You've never run into that, or
you mean something that's impossible?
Yeah,
sure,
I'm gonna go to the sun.
So,
tomorrow.
well, if you're working on something that's impossible, then it's not what's it going to? You're never going to solve it, right? If it's is that your definition of impossible?
Yeah, I guess.
So the question is, what would it do for you if you solved it?
Oh, so you're back to the first.
Well, the idea is, let's say you're working on something, you don't know it's impossible. But let's say, this simple case, let's say it's impossible for you to ever get married because you have bad breath. No one ever wants to marry you. So no matter what you do, you're never going to get married. So the question is, what is it you want to, what's it going to do for you if you got married? So if it's, I'm going to get companionship, well, you can get a dog. The dog might not care about the bad breath. You know, you hire someone, enough money, they don't care about it, and all that. So you're working your way around it by that constraint is gone because somehow you thought you were going to get it out of getting married, but you can get companionship a lot of other ways. So that's the idea behind it.
I love that you talked about the delineation, the difference between trying and doing, and there are two real stages that exist. So, and you also mentioned that most of the time we don't know the reasons behind why we're doing things.
Yes.
So let's say you've been on the journey for a while, you've been trying,
Yes.
and you've started to identify some of those reasons that are keeping you from your, like the 4 things we worry about
Yes.
doing. And you're starting to feel kind of bad about yourself because you know the reasons, but you're not making the changes to get where you want to go and be an achiever or a doer in these areas. Can you comment at all on, like, what's the breaking point? What's the turning point? Is it different for everybody? What's the transition from trying to doing? What does it look like?
So if you're doing, no matter what comes at you, you're going to handle it, okay? If you're trying, then if anything comes at you, if you're trying, it may work. But if something comes at you to block you, you're going to be deterred. You're not going to do it. Okay, so that's the difference of the 2 states. And you can see what's happening. And it's clearly you're getting the result or you're not getting the result. Okay?
Right.
So, and if you're not getting the result and you want to move to the doing state, you have to say, there's this chair in front of me, I have to walk around it. Mm-hmm. And the chair may be a person or maybe or the way you hold the world, okay?
Okay.
All right. But the point simply is that there are no, the reasons are just irrelevant. They're not necessary.
Yeah.
They're not functional at all. And mainly they're just a way of letting yourself off the hook and blinding you as to what the possibilities are.
I see. I guess just to, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but what you're saying at some level, it's empowering that at some level it's within us. And it doesn't mean we need to blame ourselves or be hard on ourselves overly. But you talk about this frame of mind where at some point, you know what, no, it isn't my boss's fault or it isn't the universe's fault or this person's fault. I just haven't gotten to the point where I've made the connections and the decision.
Well, I call it, you have to have the intention to do it and give it the attention.
I see.
So it's as simple as that. A good example, I was supposed to go to a meeting, which I didn't want to go to in Texas, in Dallas. And I got to the airport in San Francisco, and the guards were good to me. The airport in Texas was closed because there was a snowstorm. So I called up and said, really, I'm sorry, I can't go, blah, 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 blah. And it's good. I went home, had a happy life. If I really wanted to go to Texas, the fact that the airport was closed wouldn't have stopped me.
I see.
It's as simple as, if my life depended upon getting to Texas, I would have gotten to Texas, even though the airport was closed. But they gave me a gift. They gave me an obstacle, and I could just say, I had a good reason, and they didn't say. And you know, they didn't get this whole idea that so the airport's closed, man. But when are you going to come here? You know what I mean? If we were playing the game at a high level, well, you was committed to go to the meeting. Get here.
I hear.
But they didn't do that.
Okay.
So, okay.
Well, good stuff. Thanks for being here. We've got a few books left in the back. The book is The Achievement Habit. Dr. Roth, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.